Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome at this time to the program, please say hello to Rose McIver.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I love the accent.
It's strong.
Now, I noticed the accent is not very present in your new project, which is iZombie on the CW network. How hard is it to suppress the accent or develop the American accent in order to fit what they want to do?
Yeah, it's not too bad at all. I mean, I've been doing American accents since I was a kid. I worked on Hercules and Xena when they shot New Zealand.
Which I want to get to in a little bit.
But I bastardized the accent back then and tried it as a kid and had kind of been working on it for years. So I feel very comfortable with it now.
How aggravated do people from New Zealand, for those who don't know, you are from New Zealand, how aggravated do people from New Zealand get when you travel abroad and not only do they think you're Australian, sometimes they think you're British?
Yeah, I'm just so used to it, honestly. And I feel like there's worse things to be compared to. I've got so many Aussie
But which is
friends.
more insulting?
Oh, depends on the day. Depends on the day, I think. Depends on how we've been doing in the rugby. If we've just lost to Australia, I don't want to be compared to them.
Or to the rest of the world. I would think that it would be Australian because you're so close, so similar, and there's a lot of history there. But on the other hand, if people are saying you're British, there are people that really haven't traveled and explored the world, because there is a definite difference between Australia and New Zealand and what the British accent is.
Yeah, I think it's a much kind of greater difference, but it's their loss. They haven't traveled.
Yes.
You know, I'm not offended.
The show is called iZombie. It's on the CW network. The show debuts March 17th. iZombie is going to be on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. on the CW, which is pretty cool. You moved a very popular show off their time slot with Supernatural.
I know.
Has a big I won't even say cult fan base, because it's even bigger than that, because you're starting to see them in cons and toys and a whole bunch of stuff. It's gone pretty mainstream, and they have a very passionate fan base, and they're moving them to Wednesdays in order to make room for you guys.
I think the good thing is they have such a huge fan base. Their fans will go with them. They have it sorted. And we actually had a really nice dinner with all the Supernatural gang up in Vancouver. We shoot in the same locations. And so, yeah, it was really good to get to know them. I think they've created such a great show. And it's awesome for us to be able to follow The Flash, the DC Comics night, we're calling it.
There's a lot of social media presence from people involved with the show, the network, even yourself. You've been promoting it pretty heavily on your Twitter and your Instagram. It's Rose McIver on Twitter and the Instagram.
Correct.
Have you seen any pushback just because the internet sucks? Have you seen dumb fans saying like, I can't believe you're moving Supernatural? I mean, you can set the DVR now. It doesn't matter what day it's on anymore.
To be honest, I think I mean, there's been such an overwhelming amount of like good feedback and great things. Occasionally you'll get some trolls in there that don't say very nice stuff, but that's kind of been happening forever, and it happens too. I remember somebody telling me that, like, for example, if Taylor Swift said something like, oh, I had broccoli for dinner and I didn't like it, there'd be somebody out there who said, well, broccoli saved my mum's life because she did a, like, you can, no matter what you say, it can be taken one way. So I'm pretty good at not feeling that pressure at all, but everybody's been really lovely and supportive by and large.
I don't think you get much social media pushback, do you?
No.
You really haven't done anything to cause any problems, but that doesn't stop anybody either.
No, exactly. Well, that's what I mean about the Taylor thing.
She's too
it's
nice.
Like,
she's too cheery.
Stop
I
smiling.
Hate her.
Yeah, exactly.
iZombie, for people who don't know, it's an adaptation of the comic book. I'm not 100%. I only saw a couple episodes, but I'm not 100% sure how much you're drawing from the actual comic itself.
Well, the premise is that Liv is a zombie who eats brains. And
Liv is your character.
Liv is my character.
Olivia,
and Olivia Moore, Liv Moore. But yeah, it's very much like the same wry sense of humor and the same kind of kick-ass, strong female lead. There are things that we've definitely drawn from the comic, but at the same time, I've worked on so many adaptations before, and there is a big difference when something goes to screen, and there's certain things that do and don't work, and so it's been changed in the ways that we think serve it as a TV show, and hopefully still it retains the kind of essence from the comic book, because I think that they're a great series, and I'm a big fan of them.
The comic, anybody wants to go back and explore, is an old, it's part of the DC family, but I believe it's a Vertigo imprint. So the show is here, it's taken off that idea. It's not what you would typically think a zombie project would be, especially the way things happen, what you can do in the show, which we'll get to in a second, is not typical of, say, what you're used to from Night of the Living Dead or The Walking Dead, where you fight, you get bit, and then later you develop a sickness, you die, you come back, and now the virus is controlling you. But in your case, when you come back as the zombie that you are, you can speak, you have your brain capability, but you can turn on and off at some points the zombie power, I'll say, almost like the Hulk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we aren't like the shambling kind of undead at all. It is more like Hulkish in some ways. The idea is that if a zombie in our show eats brains, they're able to retain their humanity in some sense, and pass as humans. They lose their pigment. We all have white hair and very white skin, and there are certain physiological things like that. But by and large, we are quite human. And when we don't eat brains, we see quite early on in one of the earliest episodes where people can go, and it's a little bit more traditional. We still have a little bit of our own spin on it, but the zombies feel a bit more like the zombies that we know and love from other projects. But at the same time, when you get adrenaline or like raging out, we call it, you become a little bit more of like a feisty, fiery, fast-moving zombie.
Because I noticed without giving away too much, there was a scene where you're at an art show. Some gentleman comes up and approaches...
Gentleman's generous.
approaches you in a manner that is not fit for approaching a woman, and decides to become a little aggressive with you, and within seconds, you're gone, and your zombie persona takes over and just kicks the shit out of him.
That's right. Yeah, it's when Liv gets threatened. When she's threatened or starving, or it's quite animalistic like that.
Right.
These zombie things come out, her eyes go red, and she gets quite superhuman in her strength.
It's definitely an interesting take that you could turn it on and off.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's also a little bit beyond her control. She doesn't always want it to be happening. It just is an instinctive thing.
Right. All right, I'll take that back. The fact that you can control it at any point is an interesting take, because most zombie stuff is once you're bitten, you're gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. And that's sort of what we played with. That's our new way of our spin on the genre. And Diane Ruggiero Wright, who's one of the co-writers of the show, is a huge zombie fan, and she knew everything about the zombie lore and the trajectory of the zombie genre. And so for her, that was kind of her specialty, was being able to come up with which parts of that we incorporate and which parts we subvert. And so we've tried to do that in the show. I mean, Liv is an ethical zombie as well. She tries to do it the best way she can. She eats the brains of people who've already died. She works in a morgue so that she doesn't have to kill people. So that's sort of our special thing, is that zombies don't have to be bad guys.
Now, where did the concept of you come back very albino, like there's a lot of albino jokes in the show there. That's more of a vampire kind of thing, that you lose the pigmentation and what have you. What was the significance of crossing it over into the zombie thing?
I think it was to have a distinctive look that set zombies apart from humans in our show, but that still kept them in a realm where they could pass off as humans. So it was something that would be...
a lot of people don't know... Like, you, the viewer, know who's zombies and who aren't. Yeah. But the characters that you're interacting with have no idea.
Well, because a lot of them also start to hide their zombie characteristics. They, our villain very early on starts wearing fake tan and dyeing his hair, and so you can cover up these traits. But Liv chooses not to, because she's not a self-loathing zombie as she describes those people. No, she embraces who she is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, having this happen to her, she seems to have found a part of herself that she either didn't know she had or has been suppressing. Yeah. Like, she's starting to enjoy life and art. And I think one of the lines was that now you're just trying to embrace beauty. You're trying to become it in a way.
Absolutely. And I think that's sort of what I like about her as a character and the show, and what it's sort of saying is these terrible catalysts, these things that have happened in people's lives that can completely change them, could ruin you, or you could find some new side of yourself that you'd never known beforehand, and be a stronger version of yourself because of it. And that's what Liv has chosen to do, or been coaxed into doing by her partner in the morgue, Dr. Ravi Chakrabarti.
Let's talk about the morgue for a second here. The brain consumption. Now, I know it's television, I know it's fake, but you guys do a really great job of weird angles and close-ups on it that makes it nauseating to look at. Especially, there's a scene where you're eating it in a Hot Pocket, and I'm just like, oh my god! And then there's a close-up of it on some ramen noodles as you took it out of the microwave, and just what are they made of for the show?
They're made out of like coconut agar. It's like a gelatin thing. We experimented with soy protein and various bits and pieces. That was what worked the best. It looked great and it was bearable to eat.
What's the red on it?
The red on it is it's different. Depends on the angle, depends on the lighting, depends on the consistency in which it's being prepared.
Right.
But it's corn syrup or like a veggie sauce, like a veggie juice sauce thing. So we use kind of one of those two, and they've done a great job with making them look so real. I mean, I did an interview recently where the interviewer ate a real sheep's brain in front of me. And that was when I truly...
It's a delicacy.
I know, and I looked at it and I was like, right, our props department really nailed it. It's
right.
Very
and it's amazing that that's some of the specifics that they really nail. That's one of the things where I read a lot of reviews. The show people think is sort of Buffy-esque, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So it's got great storyline, drama. There's some romance angles, but comes off a little Scooby-Doo-ish at times, which is what Buffy was. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's not what you think of zombie stuff when you're thinking like Walking Dead, where it's very grim and very violent and all this stuff. So you have all this going on, and it's hard to take some of the things seriously because you're laughing at it. But then as soon as you get to the brain shot, you're like, I can't, why am I watching this?
Well, I sort of like that I love that about the show, is that we don't take ourselves too seriously. It's like just as these heightened things are happening and the stakes are raising and it could be very melodramatic, everybody within the scene will have a bit of a laugh at it, or say something that kind of undercuts that or just chills it all out a little bit. So I like that it's supernatural and fantastical, but it doesn't invest entirely in it being just drama. You know, it's a bit silly about it because it's a silly, ridiculous idea that just so happens to kind of work in this like, you know, I think that's a testament to the writing and the characters that they've written, that people, the way that the relationships are built, you're able to invest in these things that should just be really silly.
I think this show comes at a great time where it's not a bad comparison to be matched up to the Buffy and Angel camp, because that style of show hasn't been done in a while. There was a bunch of shows that were, and that kind of genre feeling for programming has gone to the wayside for a while, but you're bringing it back. And I think it's in a way where people who were fans of that stuff and appreciated that style of television will latch on to this after watching a few and go, oh yeah, this has a familiar feel, even though it's a totally different concept. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, when I read it, it kind of covers so many genres. It's comedy, drama, procedural, zombie, you know, it's all these different things. But tonally, when I've watched the first couple of episodes, I do feel like there's a familiarity about it, and there's kind of a cohesion, and I think that people who have enjoyed those sorts of shows before will really find that appealing in this.
How many episodes have been shot so far?
We've shot 13.
13. So it's a 13-episode season right now?
Correct.
Okay. With that being said, did you have some kind of stipulation in your agreement that you weren't allowed to tan at all? Because you're pretty well made up as being pale, albino-esque in the show. But if you're kind of tan, like you've got some nice pigmentation in you right now, that will come through no matter how much of the white they're caking on. So are they saying you can't go to the beach, you can't do all these things?
They were really good about it. They didn't actually tell me anything like that. For me, it's just I know I will have to spend extra time in the chair, and it makes my job more difficult if I looked, you know, not in character. So for me, I just didn't go to the beach. Luckily, I was working every hour of the day anyway, so I didn't have a chance. But over the Christmas holidays, it was genuinely one of the reasons I didn't go back to New Zealand and spend Christmas with my family, because in New Zealand, there's a hole in the ozone layer, and it doesn't matter how much sunscreen you wear, everybody's at the beach all the time and you'll get tanned. And so I didn't, and I waited till after the show finished and went back and saw my family then. And it was also good because I used that whole 2 weeks to catch up on sleep, so it worked out for everyone.
In the first episode, they show how Liv becomes the zombie. In the future episodes, do they really explain more detail of the story as to what led to that happening? Because you see how it happened, but you don't really know what caused all of that. Like they cut to right in the middle and ending of the incident that caused you to become a zombie. Do they go through the origin?
Yeah, no, they totally do. We especially as the season progresses, we start to learn more and more about what may have caused it. And there's various theories and there's various paths that we start to go down exploring that. But viewers will start to get some answers, and they'll also be asking other questions. iZombie will be on Tuesdays, 9 p.m. on the CW there for those who want to set their DVRs.
Have you been to any kind of con anywhere in the world?
I went to Comic-Con last year.
San Diego or New York?
San Diego.
San Diego. Okay, that's the big one.
Mm-hmm.
Now that this show's out, you're going to see, it's only like 4 months from now, the next San Diego Comic-Con. You're going to see people dressed as you. You're going to see some kind of, whether it's officially licensed or not, merchandise of your character, of your show out on the floor there if you go shopping or whatever like that. What do you think that's going to be like if you run into somebody and like, oh my God, she looks exactly like me?
I think that's what's so cool about Liv as a character. I think she's the sort of person who you can really dress up as, and I think is a good role model actually for people to dress up as. She's this person who looks pretty odd and embraces how she looks, and I think that's really refreshing in television to see a girl be able to look like that and be considered, a female lead and have relationships and it not be just the weird character actor. Like, she looks odd and that's who she is. And so it'll be fun to see people dressing up as her, and I'd be honored. I would be very flattered.
Some people might get weirded out about that.
If they dressed
Especially
up and came over to my house, that would be a bit weird. But at a convention, I'm sure it'll be exciting.
The social media push for the show has been great. There's a food truck for iZombie, which you tweeted a photo. You can check it out on her Twitter. I am the letter I, the letter M, Rose McIver, McIver. It's a food truck. It was here in New York, and the menu was under Brain Appetit. What's on? I couldn't see what was on the menu though.
Do you know what? I haven't seen what's on that menu either. That was a picture that our boss, Rob Thomas, who made the show, posted yesterday, and I stole it and posted it again without giving him any photo credit at all. So I'm actually going to see him.
Actually go see it. Try out the food.
I'm going to see him this weekend, and I'm sure be dragged over hot coals for that. But yeah, I haven't seen it in person myself. I'd love to. I'm in the city for a couple of days, so hopefully I come across it.
And this next question is so hack, but I'm going to ask you anyway because you have it on your Twitter. There's a Photoshop of you with your face on MacGyver. So growing up in New Zealand, you were born, late 80s, I would guess, right? So you were there for the tail end of the height of that show, but I'm sure reruns and syndication around the world. What was that like growing up with people calling you MacGyver?
It was always teachers, weirdly. It was like teachers at school, and typically quite unfunny teachers that would come to me.
They're always unfunny.
And say, hey, have you seen that show? And I'd be like, I'm 7. I don't know what you're talking about. But then, yeah, I've come to understand the joke a bit better since, getting out of my teenage years.
Bad enough being bullied and teased by kids in the school.
I got bullied by the teachers.
You don't need shit from your teachers.
I know. I was a target. I was an absolute target.
I'm running out of time with you, but I want to touch on real quick a couple other projects that you were in. For those of you who watch Once Upon a Time on ABC, you're Tinkerbell, but also you've done some Disney Channel films, the Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off, and then the sequel to Johnny
Kapahala.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the title, but it was the sequel to Johnny Tsunami.
Yes,
right.
Correct.
Huge fan base from the Disney Channel. I don't know if it's going to. Well, I'm sure at that point they've grown up a little bit. I think they'll transfer over to follow you to iZombie on CW.
Yeah, hopefully. It is definitely that audience has grown up. So I would imagine that we're probably within that realm.
Right. But I really want to get to the fact that you were in one of the incarnations of Power Rangers.
Correct.
You were in because they keep changing the Power Rangers RPM, which was way after the 90s version.
Oh, we got 20 years on that.
Right, yeah. Right. But at this point now you're animals. They're not just the whatever the robots were to make the Megazord thing. Now you're a yellow bear and you're the yellow Power Ranger.
Correct.
What is that experience like?
That was one of the best 8 months of my life. I was working with friends. Literally, a couple of the other people I worked with were people I've known since I was 12. Milo Cawthorne and Olivia Tennant, who are now married. Power Rangers brings together married couples. Who knew? But we all worked together for about 8 months, like on harnesses, and it was just so much fun. It was 20 minutes down the road from where I grew up, so I was able to still go to university and do other things at the same time. It was very, very busy, but a lot of fun. I laughed myself stupid on that show.
Did you get a lot of recognition from the Power Rangers? Like, I'll put it this way. Between Disney stuff, the Power Rangers, and now what you're going to have with iZombie, but out of the previous two there, where do you think you were recognized more for?
I guess Power Rangers in the States. Weirdly, nobody recognises actors in New Zealand at all. You're famous if you're a sports person, but nobody cares if you're an actor.
Or Peter Jackson.
Yeah. even he's fine. He wanders around the street. I still like rugby players and
footballers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's who people would really see in the street and go, oh, that's who that is.
It's good to see New Zealand has priorities.
Yeah, exactly. But coming to the States, I think probably more Power Rangers or Disney Channel. Disney Channel. Depends on the audience.
And to bring this full circle from what you said at the beginning of this interview here was that you were in Xena the Warrior Princess, but you also did all the, most of the Hercules specials with Kevin Sorbo.
Mm-hmm.
I did. Did you get recognized for that, or was that because you were too young?
I would imagine that I look pretty different. I was sort of between 6 and 10 for most of those, but I still know Lucy Lawless well. Actually, she's a friend of mine and
a fellow New Zealander.
Kiwi,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I never knew if Kiwi was a slang term or if that's what you guys actually call yourselves.
Yeah, no, it's what we call ourselves. Everybody wonders if it's insulting. Not at all. Yeah, they were great fun. They were, obviously big cult shows as well, and
they're still on to this day on syndicated through. Maybe not Sci-Fi or the major syndicates anymore, but you can find some of those channels that run old TV shows.
Yeah.
And Hercules and Xena are always on.
Yeah.
You still get royalties from that?
I never got royalties from those because I was a New Zealand actor in it. Yeah.
Well, make sure you get some from iZombie, which is on the CW network. The show debuts March 17th. iZombie is on Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. on the CW, so you can set your DVRs and watch that. I think we are officially out of time with you. Your Twitter and Instagram is the letters I am, Rose McIver, MCIVER, not MacGyver, like people would tend to think. Rose, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I enjoyed what I saw. I think you guys are doing a good adaptation of the comic book. I'd like to see where it goes further as far as if you just use that as a starting point and went on your own, or if you're going to bring more in from those stories. Thank you so much. I'd love to see you next time you come around.
Thanks. I really appreciate it.